snow in the forecast.
Thank you, Karen, for that cheery.
When is this?
I think today.
Snow
Just
tonight,
like
July,
Or tomorrow.
the party July.
And then,
Oh, can't wait.
and then Thursday, it was supposed to be like high 70 to 80.
Yeah, but we're not gonna get the snow, it's not that cold.
Maybe in the Catskills.
Catskills and
God
Or
didn't do
higher
that.
elevations of,
Okay.
doesn't know.
I can't remember a thing, of course, and, I don't know.
You're in good company.
Well, good, so we could repeat this every lesson, every week, and I've preached the same sermon, for the last 20 years. No one seems to catch it. Well, good to have you all back. Alice is on her way, and we'll get started. How is everyone? Good. If I were to say, who are the Nephilim, would you know what I'm talking about?
The beautiful people.
The God men.
Yeah, then, sure.
Yeah, what was their deal?
Celebrities.
What was their deal? Huh?
The celebrities.
The celebrities, right? The powerful, the rich and powerful. Yeah, I've been looking at buying a boat, and the one I want is 12 million, so I got a little ways to go.
You better not retire.
I got to do something. I'm looking at the bank, if you know what I mean.
Better forget the bed
Um,
job.
Yeah, I wanted to get a boat for retirement. I'm thinking now a kayak.
Let's just step down. Maybe 10 steps down.
Or just maybe a life vest.
That's first.
They're a little pricey too.
Not a bad idea.
So anyway, yeah, we're talking about the Nephilim, and what is I'm trying to place us now is what I'm doing. So what was it about the Nephilim that was criticized?
They were wicked.
Oh, they were wicked. Yeah,
Narcissistic.
narcissistic.
And they were mating with the women.
Thank you. That never happens nowadays.
No.
No.
And what then is the result? How does God regard that, and what does God do about it?
He takes matters into his own hands.
And the flood,
Oh, the flood, yeah.
right? We're gonna Yeah, God looks at the situation with it that is generated by the Nephilim, and He has had quite enough. And so we're going to start over because this isn't going to work. It's the Nephilim that triggers the flood. Everybody on board with that?
Mhm. My question is, where did we come from? I mean, the last time we got together, or the time before that, was it, what was Van? Esau? Who killed who? Esau killed Jacob? No, Jacob killed somebody. Well, anyway, he said he had a mark put on him so that he wouldn't be harmed by them, but there were no other people.
Right?
So where did these Nephilim come?
Exactly, and that's a really good point. And here we go again. And this is hard for me too, after 40, 50 years of looking at this stuff. Is I always want to go back to this is an historical account, and it's not. They're using story to tell a truth. They know perfectly well that there were, it doesn't make
sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't add up.
But so you read this thing, you read these stories. I'm thinking about Genesis, especially Genesis 1 through 11. All of those stories are mythological in nature, and you read mythological material differently than you do history, or law, or gospel, or sorry? Yeah, you have to determine the literature, right? And Germans, before World War II and during World War II, were good at this. I mean, unfortunately, they were murdering people. But this style of reading comes out of Germany, really. one has to discipline oneself when there is mythological material, narrative in this case, and rather than say, and it's hard for me to do this too, that didn't happen, that couldn't happen, scientifically, historically, whatever. It even doesn't make sense because there's no people yet, right? So you have to set all that aside. It's a discipline. And then you have to say, what point are they trying to make here?
Hard to get that across to the evangelical that group.
Well, I agree with that, but I would also say we're Westerners. We love history and we love science. We're infused with these things, so it's harder for us to take a look at poetry of any kind, right? It's just hard. When Kat reads a poem, I really have to work at listening to what she's saying, don't you? And you too, Maureen. Even if the poem is fabulous,
I love it.
I do too.
That's my major, and so that's what I.
Hey, Mary Jane. Welcome to the circus. All right. So this is terribly important. Otherwise, you treat the Bible as it does not want to be treated. It's like listening to somebody and you keep interjecting. No, you don't mean that. Or what about this? Or what about this? Let them tell their story, even if it's not true. Even if it's not historically true. We do that with our families all the time, right? We tell stories about our families. Are they true with a capital T? No.
They edit out the bad stuff.
Yeah, or in my family, of course, we're Calvinists, you edit in the bad stuff. Like you were a horrible kid and, blah, blah. But no, I was a fabulous child. And you can believe it. So that's the discipline. So what is the point of the Nephilim? Did they ever exist? Probably not. What's the point of it? What is the point of the Nephilim?
There are people like the Nephilim in every historical time.
That's right. And what do they typically do? Whatever they want.
Yeah.
And they are narcissistic. They lack empathy. They lack responsibility. Remind you of anyone? Mm-hmm. They see themselves as above the law, above human convention. They can do whatever they want. They can buy whoever they want. That's the Nephilim. So in this sense, it's mythological in this sense that it's always that way. If you are reading a mythological story, it's true always. Adam and Eve is still going on. Right? Are you going to obey the word of God or not? What's the consequence? There's good consequences, there's bad consequences, but there's consequences. If you leave the garden, how many of us feel like we're not in the garden anymore? All of us. It's mythological narrative is true for everyone. So on the one hand, we've got the Nephilim, who are going to create a flood. They create chaos. Is that true today? Of course it is. Of course it is. That's the genius, I think, of the Bible. In this score, it reads the world in truth, and then you got to deal with it. Does that make more sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not our story. It's your story. They're talking about us. Okay? Is that enough of that? So in juxtaposition, in comparison, we've got the Nephilim over here, these people that are horrendously bad, that we can't get enough of, by the way. Mm-hmm. Right? There's that too. And then in contrast, we've got Noah. So we've got the Nephilim over here. Noah is seen as a Sadiq. I know we've talked about this before. He's a Sadiq, a righteous person. And he's an idiot. He's a fool. He listens to God, right? build an ark. Oh, by the way, out in the Sahara Desert or wherever he was, right? You're going to look like an absolute idiot to all of your friends, your neighbors, but I want you to do it anyway. And he does it. He's Sadiq. He does what looks to be terribly foolish. He's not slick. Find some gopher wood. Right? Go find gopher wood to make this thing. Find some, I gotta make pitch. It takes forever to do this. Did it ever happen? No. The point is, this is your story. What are you gonna save? Are you gonna listen to the Word of God? Are you gonna save the world around you? Are you gonna be an ark? Are you gonna live your life in such a way that you build a kind of ark where people feel safe? Does that make, we're talking truth? That's the truth-telling of a narrative that is mythological in nature. You got a headache yet? Welcome to my world. Is that right? Has everybody got your head around that? Okay. And so Noah listens to the Word of God. He does what he's told to the cubit, and then he saves the world. It's a neat story, but it's your story. It's about you. You know anybody that's ever been a Noah in your life? You ever met one? I've met a few. Evie Zylstra. She was a Noah character for me growing up and for other kids. Their house was an ark. Safe place. You're good. You're accountable as well. It's another issue. She was the only one that ever said, I want to see your report card. Not my mother, not my father, Evie Zylstra. Let me see it. I think I left it at home. No, you didn't. Cough it up. Now, a 1.20 is a good start, she said. And, some of these things are emblazoned in your memory. But if you would like to continue living, we would like that bumped up to, let's say, a 4 point. Let's try for that. So I did. Evie Zylstra, Mrs. Z. So Noah saves the world, and you can too. You got to build an ark, a safe place for people. Have you ever wondered why most churches, look like this? This is navel. If you turn it upside down, it's a ship. We call this the nave. The nave. We get navel out of that. Dutch people love this kind of stuff. They love all things navel. Okay? Is that enough on that? But this reading, I can't say it enough, this reading approach really takes a discipline and care. It's part of the listening process. So there's about 5 or 6 different kinds of literature in the Bible. Some would pick at that. But I think, 5 or 6 are, and then when you see it, you say, okay, I've got to change over here and read it like that. And then you'll be in pretty good shape, I would say. All right? Enough of that? I'm kind of tired of talking about it.
Well, it's enlightening. It doesn't give me a headache. You said before it would give us a headache, but I think hearing this is important and it's enlightening in the way I feel everything. And I thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are 2 things that are very important when reading the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are many things, you write a book about it. But there are 2 things that I really have worked on and have helped me, and other people do it this way too. Respect the literature in front of you, number 1, we talked about that. And the second is lean toward a Christocentric hermeneutic. In other words, Jesus is teaching, his life, his death, his resurrection, that's got to be at the core of everything. So if you read in the Bible, let's hate homosexuals, for instance, which is fun. But where would Jesus be with that? That's where I go. So maybe something like that needs to be read as an issue for that moment. There was another reason for it. Is it universal? Looking at the life of Jesus, he never once talks about it, not once. He's talking about loving people. He takes people that are persona non grata. He does it all the time. So why wouldn't he also embrace and love a person who happens to be homosexual? You see what I mean? That is the epitome, I would say, of a Christocentric hermeneutic. That's the controlling, right? Does it jibe with Jesus' teaching? Does it jibe with what he did? Does it jibe with his death, his laying down his life for humanity? Does it jibe with life wins out? That kind of thing. If it does, then okay, it's closer to the heart of the scriptures. Because my feeling is, and I hope it is yours too, Jesus is the central character of the Bible. Right?
Define hermeneutic, please.
How you read the Bible. Just reading rules, hermeneutics. Yeah. Yeah. It's just to prove that I went to seminary. That's all. I'll say it that way. You want to talk about the Tower of Babel? I want to get us to Abraham and Sarah. That's my hope. It's 17 after, but I think this story also has to do with unity. Does somebody want to read it? It's Genesis 11, 1 through 9. It's a little nothing, but it's important. Genesis 11, 1 through 9.
Theme, one language but little communication. Upon this sad inventory of events, humans will build a great monument to themselves, what we have come to know as the Tower of Babel. There is not the sophistication to create a language deep and wide enough to plumb the depths of life or of the God who has made it. Yet humans think they are worthy of elevation enough to besiege heaven itself. Apparently, in their rush to build a monolith to their skills in language, they have not discovered the word for such a movement, hubris. God knows this word, and God will scatter their little words to the four corners of the earth. Singularity of language and the narcissistic worldview that follows behind, like a junkyard dog on a leash, leads to a perversion of place and value.
Okay. I was obviously a little cranky when I wrote that. I mean, lighten up. All right. Well, let's read the passage. Shall we do that? Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Somebody want to give that a shot?
Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which mortals had built. And the Lord said, "Look, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth.
Okay, good reading. Thank you. So what did you catch with that? What stood out for you?
They were all together in the beginning,
Uh-huh.
and something happened.
Anything else? Did you just stumble over? You thought, wow.
divided into different groups then of people who spoke different languages.
Yeah, and they wanted unity. Is there, I mean, anybody have a problem with unity? We talk about that kind of stuff all the time, right? Kids come to Vassar from all over the world, right? And there's a sense of unity. We have so much in common. What's wrong with that? When I first read this story, I thought, what the heck's going on here? This is a good thing. It's woke. I love things that are woke. This is as woke as you get. It's fabulous.
God didn't seem to like it.
Yeah, why not? They said something, and mythological narrative will give you all sorts of hints once I simmer myself down a little bit. What do they say about that?
They wanted to make a name for themselves.
Right.
They wanted fame and power.
Yep. When you go to cities in Europe, do you have favorites that you go to? You go into the old section of town. What are the tallest buildings? Churches. God is going to make a name for God's self, not you. Where do they typically put the skyscrapers in Europe?
Outside.
Outside of town. Yeah, I picked up my mother in Amsterdam for the first time. We're on a train heading into Amsterdam. And she's looking around. It's filled with Dutch students. First thing she says, and the whole car is filled with youth dew, which is what she wore. Remember that? It's a perfume which she loved wearing. So they're all, all the kids are like, what is that? Estee Lauder Youth Dew.
It's still around.
Is it?
I have it.
You do? Wear it some Sunday. It'll take me right back. It'll take me right back to my
It's
mother.
already. I wore it one Sunday and you commented.
Did I? I don't remember doing that, but yeah, it's a very distinctive. And if you use a lot of it,
It's strong.
it's really strong. So here I am with my mother, and it was February. It's cold as anything. She's wearing a sweater, and they're all looking at her, and she goes, "Look at all these cute little Dutch kids." And she goes on and on and on. I said, just a heads up, every one of these Dutch kids speaks English. So they know exactly. And they're all kind of going like this. And we keep going, and my mother goes, looking out the window, she goes, "Oh, never been to Europe before." She goes, "Oh my God, look at all the history." I said, "Mom, all these are brand new buildings. This is all." And these kids are just, college kids. They're just, I just went, sorry, my mom. But yeah, what are the tallest buildings in a town? What are the tallest buildings in New York City? Trade, money, power. We want to make a name for ourselves. Is there anything wrong with that? We're number one. Is there anything really wrong with that? I don't know. We want to make a name for ourselves. And is there a difference between unity and uniformity? Right? That's all. That's also going on in this passage, I think. Let's have uniformity rather than unity. I mean, that's Lyall, right? That's what we try to achieve here. Not uniformity, unity, which is harder to do in my estimation. And God doesn't like it. He wants unity, not uniformity. He wants the tallest building to be for worshiping God, not commerce and power. everything else. I love New York City, but it bugs me every time I go in there. It bugs me a little bit. You can see Riverside Church pretty well. It's up on the hill, but that's the only one I can make out when I go in. Bugs me. Unity, uniformity. We're going to make a name for ourselves. Rather than we're gonna try to make a name for God. Lift that name up, not my name up. And one of the things that we see throughout the Bible, Old and New Testament, is that the authors of the Bible, of the Old Testament especially, are nowhere to be found. We put those names on there. They didn't do it. Because the story of God is more important than the author. We've reversed that in the West. Where you go to the bookstore down the street, you'll see the name of the author is often larger than the title. The story is more important than the storyteller. And so they go out of their way in the Old Testament for sure. They go out of their way to hide the author. Because the story is so important. Let's make a name for ourselves. The Bible will say, no, we're not doing that. The story is more important than the author. Okay? All right. So that really ends what I would call the mythological section of Genesis. Genesis 1 through 11 are mythological stories, one after the next, aimed at telling us what we're going through, and everybody's going through. These are universal stories for every human being on earth. Okay? So you can go to Taiwan and talk about this to them, this theme, what makes language great? Tell me about unity. Tell me about uniformity. And they'll be able to speak to it. Every human being will be able to speak to this, which makes it really neat. Rather than say, a long time ago, back in, Oman, there's a couple piles of rocks, and we know that's the Tower of Babel. That's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with anything. Okay? Anybody want to respond to that? Move on? Okay, now we're going to make a shift into history. Chapter 12 is the beginning of what we understand as narrative history, or historical narrative, you'll hear that. Or theological narrative is another way. That's how I kind of look at it. In other words, it's going to sound and read like history as we know it. Now, is it history in the sense that we do it? No. But the Jewish people, from a very early stage, this early, is about 2000 BC, Jewish people consider history to be terribly important. And our sense of time comes from the Jews. Prior to chapter 12, let's say, I shouldn't say that, but prior to the writing of Genesis, all the neighboring cultures and beyond saw time as cyclical. We've talked about this before. It's cyclical. And if you have a cyclical sense of time, you can kind of say Hakuna Matata. This period of time doesn't matter all that much, because we're going to get another time at the plate at another time. Because history's cyclical, right? So don't worry about it. The Jews said, forget that. Time is linear. This is the only day you're going to get, just like this one. Your life is the only life you're going to get. There is a beginning, right? In the beginning, God created the heaven. In the beginning, time will have a beginning and time will have an end. So hustle up. So one of the things we get from that understanding of time is that it's precious. You're precious. So don't screw it up. So the other side of it is anxiety. You get anxiety with a linear understanding of time. It matters what you do. It matters who you become. It matters who you love. It matters who you hate. It matters what you do. It matters. You matter. So that gives us a great sense of purpose. We are treasured, and it cranks up our anxiety because it matters if you don't do it too. It matters if you don't live out your life fully. Does that make sense? We get that from the Jews. Jewish sense of time. How do you feel about that? Okay? You're enjoying your anxiety? So Genesis 12 is really the first time we get something that feels like history. These are historical people going through historical things. So we have to change our reading rules a little bit. Our hermeneutics have to shift a little bit to say, okay, that happened in the past, like Abraham Lincoln. And then we have to ask the question, what can we derive from that story? You see what I mean? It's derivative in that sense. Rather than with mythological stories, it's aimed at you. This is about you. Now we shift over, and it's historical. So we're going to understand these two people, Abraham and Sarah, and we're going to ask the question, what can we get from this story? See how it's a little bit different? How it shifts? Shifts a little bit? Okay. Well, let's take a look at Genesis 12, whatever we're doing here. 1 through 3, that's the biggie.
Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed."
Okay. So we've had sort of general discussions in Genesis 1 through 11 about life and living and God, and now we're into what's called particularia. These are particular. Now the story is particular. It's just two people. It's about two people. And what did you notice in the reading? Is there anything repeated?
Yes.
Blessing, bless. What does that word mean when you hear that?
Usually means something good.
Something good. Yeah, for sure. Anything else? When you hear the word bless, I've lived a blessed life. When somebody says that, what are they driving at? What are they thinking about?
That God's been good to them.
God has been good to them? Are there any sort of things you check off? When you say I've lived a blessed life, that means I've had that. What's on the list? What's on your list?
Joy.
Joy. It's times of joy.
Family.
Family.
Health.
Health. Did you say
Does
that?
it help?
Health. That's two. Anything else?
A comfortable lifestyle.
Comfortable lifestyle.
Not suffering great tragedy.
Not suffering great tragedy. Good
Friends.
friends.
Success.
Success.
Freedom.
Freedom. Anything else?
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Great. Yeah. Anything else? It's good. It's important to unpack some of these big, fat words. Right? I've said this before. This is a good example of a word in the Bible. It's about that big, and it goes down 17 miles. There's a lot of content with a little tiny word. We can say that about forgiveness, too. There's a bunch of them in the Bible that are just little nothing words. You walk right past it. They go down and down and down and down, and this is one of them. One of the reasons why it's repeated, too. Anything else about blessing? Well, when you get home, just ask yourself, for me, what does a blessed life look like? What does it look like? For me, it's different for everyone, but what's it look like? And how am I doing? Something like that. Is it fair? Okay. All right. And what do you need? Do you need anything else to kind of, is there a box that needs checking and it hasn't yet? And something you really yearn for and want? It's important. It's important. So God comes to this geriatric couple. I think Abraham's 75 years old, right? They're at the fountains. They've been hanging out in Ur of the Chaldees. Does that ring a bell? Ur of the Chaldees. It's the fountains. It is the place. It is the place to go retire. That's where they are, and they're going to live out their lives. They've got some money, right? They've been successful. They have cattle and all sorts of stuff, and they're going to be just fine. They don't have kids. They don't have any kids, so they're there at the fountains. They're going to live out their lives, and they get the menu when they sit down for lunch, and I'll have the fish, and so on. They're going through all that. That's their daily routine. They're closing it down, right? Closing it down, and they've got a lot to be grateful for. Life has been good, but they don't have kids, and that puts a big dark cloud over their heads. People aren't going to join them for lunch. They're comfortable. Ur of the Chaldees, it's got a running water system. We know that. It had a sewer system. It was a great place to retire, but nobody's going to sit with them for lunch. Because they don't have kids. They don't have children. And there's got to be a reason. A moral reason. They did something wrong, and God has punished them for not having, and God has punished them for something. We don't know what it is. And as a result, they do not have children. And God would never punish a couple ever, because God is just. God is just, and God would never punish a couple and leave them barren, which would be another big word, about this big, and 28 miles down. Barrenness. God just wouldn't, unless there was a good reason. We don't know the reason, but there's got to be a reason. So we're not going to sit with those two for lunch at the fountains. Not going to do it. What would Jesus do about that? This is how you employ a Christocentric hermeneutic.
Go sit with us.
Of course you're going to sit with him. And he's going to pay for it. He'll pay for lunch. How you guys doing? Where are you from? What's good here? I can picture him at the table with them. At the table with them. See? At the table. It's profound, isn't it? What's Jesus going to do? Hey, so what's it like? You're 75, you've been retired, how long have you been here? They'll laugh. Other people are watching all this, saying, what the hell is going on here? And so on, right? And so good to meet you, you're terrific. What's your name? I'm Jesus. You can picture them there, can't you? Why? Because God does not punish. He does sometimes, I guess. There's cause and effect in this world. But God doesn't go out of his way and punish people for no reason. It just doesn't happen. Some people are just unlucky with certain things. They're unlucky. Didn't work out. So there's no judgment about it. Yeah? Everybody with that? So God comes to these two characters and these two barren people, barren couple, and says, listen, you're 75, I want you to get going. Get going. And they're saying, right? Can you live into this? I'm 63, and I'm thinking, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I want you to get going to an undetermined place. You'll be doing a little wandering. You're going to be Anthony Bourdain around the world. You know, you don't. We'll let you know where you're going. You know, a little later. But I'm going to bless you. Listen, guys, I'm going to bless you. And you're going to have a child. That's going to get fixed. We're going to close that circle. You're going to have a child. But we're going to be blessed. And then what else happens? Okay, they're going to have a blessing. They're going. What does he say next? I will bless you. What's the next? There's 4 pieces to this. What's that? And you will become a blessing. It's different than being blessed, right? Right? Don't you think? Being blessed is different than being a blessing. Right? They're going to become a walking icon of God's blessing. Right? We talk about the incarnation. God is incarnate in Jesus into this world. This is an incarnation of blessing. They're going to be walking blessings. Do you know anybody like that? I know a few right here. You're not just blessed, but you are a blessing. You walk into a room and things are going to get better. You know people like that? Would you like to be a person like that? I will bless you. You will become a blessing. What's the next? Huh?
Make you a great nation.
Make you a great nation, right? We're barren. We don't have children. We're in our 70s. But, you know, this sounds real good. It sounds like a politician talking about, you know, it's ridiculous. Okay. What's the next phase of blessing?
He will bless people who bless them. And he will curse people who curse them.
You will bless those around you.
Bless those who bless Abraham and Sarah.
Well, how's it work? Anybody reading it? Yeah, that's an interesting little bit there. What does it say? Literally, what is that? I will bless you, you will become a blessing, you will bless others, and what's going to happen to them?
I will bless those who bless you.
All nations of the world, something like
All
that?
families of the world,
Will,
earth shall be blessed.
and they will bless themselves. Does it say that in your version? Because that is correct. I will bless you, you will become a blessing, you will bless others, and they will bless one another. That's the Hebrew. I don't know what. That's not in here? Okay, well, let me straighten it out then. This is pretty important, right? I will bless you. That's the first blessing. You will become a blessing. You will bless the world around you, or the nations around you, and the nations of the earth will bless themselves. That's the 4.
It says, and in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed.
Okay, well, that's not quite right. You know, that's not a great translation. Yeah, those 4. Is that a dynamic set of blessings? It's dynamic, right? That's what we hope for Lyall, right? We're going to be blessed individually. We're going to become blessings. We're going to go out and bless our community. And because we exist and do what we do, they bless themselves. Is that happening at Lyall? You bet it is. It's happening. That's why you know it's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And we're flawed, especially the guy wearing the dress up here. But you can see it's working. We call this thing that we just read the Abrahamic covenant. It's the very first covenant in the Bible. There will be many. There will be many covenants and restatements of covenant. But they all stem from this. All of them stem from chapter 12. Every single covenant in the Bible. So it's like a picture of an onion, let's say. The core of that onion is this. And every other covenant that you're going to see in the Bible, I think so, I think it's 100%, is comes from this Abrahamic covenant of blessing. If it doesn't, there's a problem. So when, this is just free information, but in Matthew, you see Jesus talking, giving the Sermon on the Mount. How does it go?
Blessed are
Blessed are this person. He often, and the writers of the Gospels will often make a bridge to Old Testament things, and that's what they're doing here. Expanding the Abrahamic covenant. That's what they're doing on purpose. Okay? So now we're gonna try to see how this gets played out. How does this happen? We're going to find out in 2 seconds flat while God is talking to Abraham and Sarah that, by the way, while you're on your way with your walkers, can you picture it? I can picture it. It's like, what the heck? This is not Hollywood.
How much younger is Sarah than Abraham?
I'm guessing, and I'm sure it says, but I would say 70. They're retirees. She's not going to have a baby. As we find out, where they're going to help God, right? They're going to help God. We'll help him out because God's an idiot and doesn't know science or biology or anything. This is ridiculous. So Sarah's going to say, well, hey, Abraham, we want to help God out. So why don't we have a concubine? You're going to have a child through the concubine. Then we're good, right? We're good. And God will say, good try, but that's not what I had in mind. Just like he has resurrection of Jesus in mind. We say that's impossible. He's going to say, no, it's you two are going to have a child. We're going to call him Laughter. Isaac is Laughter. But right after this Abrahamic covenant of blessing, God is going to show Abraham and Sarah the land of Canaan. And they're going to say, look, you're going to get that. This is what you're going to get. There are people living there. So we're gonna wipe these people out so we can, so there's this whole thing at the very beginning, there's tension. On the one hand, we're going to be a couple and a nation of blessing. On the other hand, these people are out of luck. And we're always going to have that tension in the Old Testament. Always. We're people of blessing. We want to bless the world around us. But you're going to have to leave your house for this to happen. In order to be who you are, did you ever have to step on somebody? In order to be where you live, did anyone else have to pay the price? These are good questions. Not easy questions. To live our lifestyle, is anybody else paying for it? Yes. It's sobering. It really is sobering. So I've lived this blessed life. Who picked up the check? I find that terribly sobering. And then what do you do about it? Yeah, it really has, bless you. That has haunted me my entire adult life. Great, God's been so good to me. God's so fabulous, so great. Sorry that you had to pay for it. But that's the way it goes. If you wonder about it, just take a little trip down to Poughkeepsie. You'll find.
You don't have to go that far.
Or that far, right? Yeah, good point. Yeah, so I don't know what to do about that feeling of being grateful and guilty at the same time. And maybe somebody smarter, better can figure that out. I can't figure it out. tears at me. So, on that thrilling and happy note, thank you, Pastor, for reminding. Why don't we take a look at Genesis 15, 1 through 6 when we get back together. This covenant talk is going to be, kind of sprinkled throughout the next week or two. We're going to meet for 6 weeks or so. Is that okay? Yeah, then we can do a little bit more, but this is kind of, maybe it might be my little swan song here. So, if there's other things you might want to take a look at, I'm open to that. I am not a biblical scholar. I've never considered myself one, but I've known a few. Take it with a grain of salt, I guess, what we're doing. But that's something I'm open to if you wanted to talk about another passage, or you want to talk about some theological matters, if you wish. That'd be fine with me too. I can't guarantee that I know anything. Here we are. Pretty quiet. Alice, we are blessed, and it's on their dime. They're just going to have to suffer. Right? See, they gave up. They gave up their morals. Anybody have a question for today?
No, now I feel guilty and
Yeah, sorry about that one. Sorry about that.
blessed, guilty.
Well, Christians, we are forgiven, we're blessed by God and all that. All it took was somebody to hang on a cross. That's all. You see what I mean? You know what I mean? You got to come to terms somehow with that, of being blessed and somebody, paying for it. Yeah,
But you don't you, I mean, or maybe it is just me, but I do sometimes feel guilty for
yeah, me too.
things that I have or
Yes.
feeling. I mean, I think it's a kind of a guilty,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
You wonder, well, I wonder why
I've even
was I
thought-
lucky? And-
Why? Right, survivor guilt almost, right? Yeah, me too.
Warm white.
Yeah.
We all are. I mean, you have so many blessings that you have no control over either, but
It has momentum after a while, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Well, the VFW, whoever these people are over here, these fantastic people. They asked me again, would you do the welcome and the benediction, the prayer, and that always gets me. My initial reaction is say no, because it makes me so uncomfortable, and it makes me uncomfortable talking about right now. What the enormity of deaths and suffering. I can't even get my head around this. My dad, as you know, was in the Air Force himself. Half of the bombers went down when my dad was involved, and 50%. And you better live up to it, or attempt to live up to this monstrosity of death and suffering, and the families that are involved. It's not just one death, as you know, it spreads out into a family, a community, and how can we honor that, or what? I don't even know. Because words are really hard for me to come up with. But I usually feel bad, like, personally and collectively, we're idiots in what we've done with those sacrifices, and how we live our daily lives as Americans is just absolutely terrible. Makes me so ashamed. But you can't say that on Memorial Day. So you kind of, sacrifice. You don't want to lie either, but Yeah, it's not an easy time for me to be a minister. I'll say something. I feel like I'm duty bound to do that too, right? You have to be honest.
When you're sitting there, you're saying it to the world.
Just don't give them my address. I've already been, my life's been threatened as it is. But anyway, that's, yeah, we live out a life of blessing with a little price tag on it. And it's not a bad thing to know and keep that close. So it keeps you humble. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay.
Thank you.
Huh?
Very enlightening.
Good.
Something
Okay.
to think about.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. Yeah. Well, it's good of you to come.
No Noah.
Huh?
No Noah. No ark. No couples of animals.
I need a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a, yeah, I know I don't do a very good
You
job.
know,
of
the
it.
Native American creation stories all have water.
Oh, yeah, almost every society, every culture, every civilization has a flood.
Yep.
Now, the question is, did they have a flood, a real flood, or was the idea of a flood and wiping this out necessary as a story? That's where I go. I mean, definitely there have been floods. There's floods all the time. Go down to Fort Lauderdale. But for me, it's the point, the truth of the story that matters. And it doesn't surprise me that a flood story would be ubiquitous throughout human culture. That doesn't surprise me. That God's up to here with what's going on, and now you're going to be up to here, so to speak. Go with God.
Well,